you right here on the India Development Debate. I'm Supriya, Shrinate, and with me Sandeep, Gurumurthy. As if they were waiting for the Karnataka elections to get over, oil marketing companies today announced a hike in petrol and diesel prices after holding on for more than 2 weeks. Now, interestingly, they were keeping the fingers on the pause button despite a spike in crude prices globally to keep their political masters happy is what a lot of people are saying. Technically speaking, oil marketing companies are free to adjust fuel prices in line with international crude rates as the government has completely deregulated both diesel and petrol.
Today's hike, however, rubbishes the free pricing theory, making it clear that the government still continues to pull the strings. It's a raw deal for consumers any which way. When the crude prices fell sharply in the initial years of the government, the centre chose to hike the excise duty, denying the benefits of the fall in crude prices to the Aam Aadmi. But despite the growing clamour for a cut in duties, the government has so far done little to cool the prices. The politics of petrol pricing, that's our topic of discussion tonight on the India Development Debate, the second edition of the India Development Debate. Joining us on the show tonight for this leg, we've got S.C. Tripathi, former Oil Secretary, Narendra Taneja, convener of the BJP's Energy Cell and energy expert himself, and Gaurav Vallabh, spokesperson of the Congress Party. Thank you all for joining us on the show this evening. Mr. Taneja, since you represent the ruling party, I have to start with you. Petrol and diesel prices were last revised on the 24th of April when they were hiked by 13 paisa each, and then a freeze till today. Why did Karnataka polls force you to keep prices on hold for 19 days? What sort of diesel deregulation this really is?
Well, first of all, to make it very clear, the government had absolutely no role in it. You see, petrol is a decontrolled commodity, diesel is a decontrolled commodity. And I personally feel, my personal opinion is that the companies concerned, whether public sector and the private sector, they probably could have handled the issue in a different way, probably better, in my view. But as far as the government is concerned, look, if the government, first of all, there is no reason for the government to intervene in these day-to-day matter or the micromanagement of these companies, the pricing and so on. It's a fact. Had the government really been interested in this, then government would have handled it, much more smartly. There was no reason, for instance, to freeze the price, and that reason is, on giving a kind of an excuse or the reason to others, including opposition, to ask questions to us. So, petrol, diesel are decontrolled commodities. We believe in decontrolled regime, and we are working, very hard in order to make sure to make it as absolutely transparent as possible, and to put in place a kind of regime so that journalists or the public opinion or others, they don't need to even ask any question to us, because that's the way forward. It's a crucial sector of India's economy, and once the decision is taken, we have to take it to the way where such questions never come to us.
Hitting the nail on its head, these are deregulated commodities. Ideally, the government should have nothing to do with it. It should be revised on an everyday basis because that's the policy decision that has been made. But this isn't the first time that fuel prices have been used politically. UPA had frozen a petrol price revision despite that being a deregulated commodity for assembly elections in Tamil Nadu and West Bengal for about 5 months in 2011. Raised rates only after elections were over. Fuel retailers cut prices in December 2017 before the Gujarat elections, then moved up only after elections. Now Karnataka, 19-day pause. Mr. S.C. Tripathi, the IOC chairman Sanjeev Singh says that this is just temporary moderation that we were doing to avoid sharp hikes. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Holding prices is a government diktat, quite clearly. It may be unsaid, it may be said, but this is what the government of the day, and I'm talking about political spectrum, political parties across the spectrum, expect oil marketing companies to do.
Okay, the question is to me.
Yes,
I can't hear very well, but what I heard, can I speak, because I didn't hear the entire conversation. You see, it's all a smoke screen. I don't think the government is not interfering, because on one hand you say that the prices will be fixed on daily basis, and then for about 18-19 days you don't have any revision of prices. I am not in favor of daily revision of prices. I think weekly or fortnightly would be much better. But then once you decide, and it has been going on for a year, then not to have any revision during a period when the crude oil prices were going up, rupee was depreciating. So, it doesn't give any credence to the story. And if the government is not in the picture, and I am not saying of this government, there is a petroleum and natural gas regulatory board, and there is a legislation which was passed in 2006, and government should have no role. That was the objective there in the legislation, that government should have no role in micromanagement and in marketing. But neither the UPA government nor the NDA government in last 12 years have notified petroleum products for that regulatory board to really operate and supervise. That board is only looking after gas pipelines, etc.
Absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. Narendra Taneja, before I take it to the Congress, Narendra Taneja, please respond to that point made. It's a smoke screen. If you were serious about the intent of deregulating prices, then a regulatory independent authority should be the one taking the call on, on fuel prices. Free it of all political interference. Say it's a regulator that's moving prices. People are not going to believe that for 19 days, the chairman of these oil marketing companies willingly decided not to hike prices because, I mean, it's just too much of a coincidence. I mean, why can't you do this instead of saying this, this hypocrisy of saying that, oh, it's deregulated every day, there'll be a price revision. Where is it happening in any case?
You see, when it comes to you see, the question is when these companies, for instance, including the chairman of Indian Oil, I mean, if he makes a statement, I think, it's a company, the largest PSU we have in the country, they might have taken the decision keeping whatever, economic, financial fundamentals. I don't know that. But the question is, yes, I agree with your argument. If it's dynamic pricing, it should be going up and down every day. If not every day, at least every alternate day. That's how it works. So I go along with you as far as your argument is concerned. But at the same time, the question is, once you have decontrolled petrol and diesel, Dr. Manmohan Singh decontrolled in 2010. That was, I believe, it was a fantastic decision, a historic decision. Then why do we need a regulator? Once you have decontrolled, let the market decide. And especially for a commodity where your dependence is as high as 83% on imports. So I personally feel that there is no need to have a regulator. The question, you have got the government, you have got parliament, you have got, other bodies, and at the same time you have got the market. So let the market decide. Why should there be regulator? I don't understand. The question is that once you have decontrolled, then let the market, and that's precisely what we are trying to do. Is some people might think that it's not as sophisticated as in some Western democracy, but our target is to make this decontrol regime as transparent and as sophisticated as you can find anywhere in the world. I agree with you that the companies probably out of their own enthusiasm, whatever, I really don't know. If they didn't really revise the price, along the couple of weeks, I personally think that was not very smart on the part of the companies.
Smart thing on the part of the companies, they were just trying to please the government. But I think the simple question to ask is, why does public sector need to keep pleasing the government all the time? But I think there's a larger point to which you alluded to, that the decision to deregulate petrol was really taken by the Manmohan Singh government in 2010. And in 2016, diesel was deregulated by your government. The Congress party has some very tough questions to ask, Sir Mr. Gaurav Vallabh. All your party leaders are today slamming the government on, this petrol price hike. Some of it is justified because, consumers didn't get the benefit when prices were low. Some of it is not justified because when you deregulated petrol, you knew very well that prices will be benchmarked to international standards. Prices will be related to market. So why this hypocrisy of today attacking the government? Because any government will ring fence voters from a price rise going into elections, just like you did in 2011 before Tamil Nadu and West Bengal. And you began this with a petrol price deregulation.
Not hypocrisy as such. I'm coming to that. See, in a petrol price, there are two components. One component is of the crude price and another component is of the taxes, and it includes both. So what we are trying to say, the way the government had increased the taxes in last 4 years, 7.5 lakh crore additional taxes were collected and generated by this government in last 4 years from the oil, diesel and petrol. So we are trying to say, when the common man is crying, when the middle class is suffering, why don't you give immediate relief by reducing excise duty at least 2 rupee per litre, so that there is a multiple impact of this. The industry and the manufacturing is also going to get a positive stimulus because of this. And second point, Supriya, I would like to raise that internationally on 11th of April, Prime Minister went in the International Economic Forum meeting, and he warned, or he mentioned, that the OPEC should not have irresponsible prices. But you know what is the basic problem? The basic problem is the oil forwards. The oil forwards volatility is so high that now India should take lead in any international forum, whether G20 or any other international forum, to question that what is the usefulness of these oil forwards, because these oil forwards are making the oil prices internationally very high. So when Prime Minister is going to Russia for an informal meeting, I with folded hands on behalf of Congress party, I am just praying to Prime Minister that take this agenda and just try to find out that how you can regulate the oil forwards so that internationally the volatility in oil prices should come down and we can get a benefit. And
well,
meanwhile,
Mr. Gaurav Vallabh, I take your point, but it's wishful thinking if you think that India can regulate the movement of oil prices. I mean, you clearly have high expectations from Prime Minister Modi. I am not saying. I take that point. Gaurav Vallabh, I want to pick up on the point that you said earlier on excise duty cut, because there's merit to debate that. There's merit to debate the fact. And Mr. Tripathi, as the expert on the panel, isn't there a case to reduce excise duty to give the consumers some respite? The government, it's unfair to keep filling its coffers in an election year. And the upside of when crude prices were low, the government used that to raise excise duty, which you could argue whether it was the right decision or not. Now that crude prices have shot up sharply, is it not fair that the government cut excise duty and give relief to the consumer?
Absolutely, I've been saying it for quite some time, and in the month of September, October, I think due to public pressure, government did reduce the excise duty by 2 rupees a litre for petrol and 2 rupees a litre for diesel. But that is not enough, because when the prices came down from $120 a barrel crude to about $30 a barrel crude, the government levied additional 14 rupees a litre excise duty on diesel and additional about 10.5 rupees a litre excise duty on petrol. We consume about 11,000 crore litres of diesel and about 3,000 crore litres of petrol in a year. Now you calculate, it comes to about 185,000 crores of rupees in a year. So that is the additional revenue that the government took, and also the companies, they increased their margins and the dealers' commissions were also raised. So in the process, consumer also benefited, but he was the last to benefit. First the government, then the company, then the dealers, and last the consumers. So now that the prices are going up, the consumer's interest should be protected and the government should reduce the excise duty. So should the companies and dealers, they should also reduce their margins.
Mr. Taneja, I will ask you a very frank question, because I don't just consider you as the BJP spokesperson on this show. You're also an energy expert, and you wear that hat on this fuel discussion as well. We've had so many fuel discussions with you before you donned the hat of the party spokesperson. Keep the partisan politics on fuel aside. Diesel prices have touched a record high. Petrol is at a 56-month peak, thanks to the daily revision in oil prices, which is a policy decision. And, it all began with the UPA. You took it to its logical end. All of that said and done. But why should consumers bear the burden of high crude when they did not get the entire benefit or complete benefit when crude oil prices were low? Remember, in 2016, prices went below $30 a barrel. Then there was this excise duty hike that happened. So the consumers were not the complete or the whole beneficiaries of this, but they're expected to bear this burden. Isn't that double speak?
Well, I think, Supriya, it's important not to really isolate only the petroleum sector or the taxes on the petroleum sector. We have to look at the economy in totality. We also have to look at, for instance, how the government is managing the overall economy, especially in the context of the ordinary consumer. Ordinary consumer, look at, for instance, is anybody talking about, rise in prices of essential commodity for your day-to-day life? No, nobody is talking. People are very happy with the inflation rate. And at the same time, what we have done in the area where people used to use diesel earlier for irrigation and other purposes, we have taken electricity there, we've taken alternative energy there. And also in the areas where people earlier used diesel in order to have access to the village, now there is a road there, so people have access there. There's so many other things being done at the same time. But yes, I do buy the argument that why put this burden only on the petroleum sector? I would rather look at it this way, that why should not this architecture be reformed? So the government dependence on the petroleum sector is not as big or as large as, for instance, and that goes both for the central government and the state government. government. I personally go along with you, Supriya, that the time has come for the government to really actually recast the entire architecture. I don't think that, unless and until you work in that direction, I mean, just reducing by 1 rupee, let's for the sake of discussion, you reduce, excise by 1 rupee, and the government in the process will lose about 15,000 crore. But how would that really help? Because internationally, we all know oil prices are not going to go down anytime soon. Chances are they're going to touch $80 barrel per day very soon. So I personally feel the best thing is to all political parties, all to put their head together and to find a kind of rework the entire architecture. That is the only way forward. Bring it under GST. If you hate the word GST, you want to call it Gabbar Singh, I have no problem with that. But find the way so that we rework the entire architecture. There is absolutely no other way to do it. So the government, both center and state, they bring down their dependence on the petroleum sector for their tax collections.
Okay, you make the point on bringing it under the goods and services tax, and one would argue that's a decision that has to be taken by the GST Council that has representation larger the central government and state chief ministers and finance ministers. 18-19 of those states are BJP governments, Mr. Taneja. But let me ask Gaurav Vallabh, because the Congress party cares so much about the consumer paying so much for petrol and diesel prices. Let's talk solutions, right? At the end of it, there is a fiscal deficit target that needs to be met. You will not support the government if it were to do an asset sale, if it were to sell stake in, in land or monetize its assets. You will say that, oh, you are selling off our assets, and a fiscal deficit target has to be met. But will you support a move to bring petrol and diesel under the GST? And not you. Will your state chief ministers that are in power, will they support a move to bring these products under the GST net?
See, Sandeep, we believe that it should come, but there should be a proper planning. It should not happen like that they decided. There should be a proper compensation scheme for all states, and they should be guaranteed for their compensation. Because
if everyone is going to ask compensation, where will the money come from? Where will, if you want to look at, someone has to foot the bill. Someone has to foot the bill. If you want to provide relief to the consumer, someone has to foot the bill. Where will the money come from? The center can't keep compensating everyone for everything all the time.
So I am coming to that. See, Sandeep, please try to appreciate the excise duty on petrol, diesel and alcohol is the major source of revenue for state government. So you have to save their structure also. So there should be a proper compensation plan which should be discussed, but to provide the immediate relief to the consumers, I am demanding that there should be immediate 2 rupee cut in the excise duty of petrol and diesel. First point. Second point, in the long term, on behalf of Congress party, I am saying that we welcome the step to take petrol to the GST under the ambit of GST. Second point. And third point, I was not able to complete. See, I did a research on this, and I had one research paper on this. The oil forwards are killing the international prices, and you are saying India can't take the lead. See, at least we can take the agenda to the G20 platform, that this is happening and this is the impact. Because as per economic survey of 2018 of Government of India, if there is a $10 upside movement in the oil prices, the GDP comes down by 0.3%. So we have to take this seriously in all these informal, no agenda meetings of Prime Minister. Please go with the concrete agenda and give some relief to the consumers by slashing down the petrol and the diesel prices.
All right. Gaurav Vallabh, I think you've raised an important point about international oil politics and dynamics. I don't know if we're such an important player. Are we such an important stakeholder? I don't know. But Mr. Taneja, come in very quickly. I think you wanted to make a point to that, because I then have to go to Mr. Tripathi.
Supriya, my friend from the Congress party is basically talking about international oil governance. You see, there is no international oil governance. There is international climate governance, but there is no international body, for instance, either regulating or try to keep even a close eye on that. There are several of them. There is an IEA, which basically is a kind of OECD group. There is International Energy Forum. There is OPEC and all. But there is no high table as such, for instance, where you can go and basically put your head together, argue, and then reform the thing. So first we have to create this kind of international oil order, and so that we can go and occupy the space on the high table. Right now there is no high table. Basically, if you look at the whole thing very, very carefully, include the forwards, is all controlled by Western countries or the Western international markets. And that's why oil is mainly traded in dollars, and America is a big beneficiary of that. If you're talking, working in the direction of bringing reforms in the international energy governance, I'm with you, my friend from the Congress Party. Right. I'm with you. But unfortunately, we need, we need to create the high table for that.
I want to make a small comment. You should be with government. You should be with Prime Minister, Mr. Taneja, because I agree. I agree that there is no international governance on this, but on various platforms, please initiate this discussion, because I question the usefulness of the volatility, and there is a very immense requirement
I'm sorry. I understand that. I think oil governance is a very important topic, but I don't think we can. No, one second. I think oil governance is an important topic, but we can't be talking in this forum about just that one topic alone. I really have to talk on the behalf of the oil marketing companies as well. And Mr. Tripathi, I have to ask you this question. The gap between market rate and what is still being sold at pumps is around 2 rupees every litre of petrol and diesel each. Now, this 17 paisa or a 21 paisa or a 13 paisa hike is not going to bridge that deficit. In fact, we're given to understand that state-owned oil marketing companies have lost about 500 crore rupees as they absorbed higher cost from oil rates and rupee versus the dollar dynamic. What's the way out? I mean, will companies be made to absorb the burden once again, or will the exchequer bear the burden? And the question also is, why should they? Because this is supposed to be a three-way, it was supposed to be OMCs, government and the consumer.
Yeah, I'll come to that, but just one word about oil governance. There is no UN body. WTO does not also look into oil trade, and the futures are really financial products. So, it's a difficult thing, but what he is saying has been tried for quite some time, but so far we have not succeeded, because there is a division both among the developed countries and the developing countries. Many oil exporting countries are developing countries, and Russia has become a major producer. Many developed countries are importing countries, and they formed IEA to negotiate and block, but we did not have. So, India, China, Russia, but Russia has become an exporter. So, India, China and some other countries together, if they become a bloc, because they are now major consumers, maybe in future we can do. Now, coming to the oil marketing companies, yes, the oil marketing companies must have lost money, but for the time being and since last 4 years, their margins were raised. So, there is enough leeway and enough cushion in the margin which they are enjoying, and also the dealers are enjoying good commission. So, I do not think on overall basis oil marketing companies at the moment are losing, but yes, if the prices go up and they are not allowed to raise the prices, then of course, they will start bleeding, as they were during some years in the UPA government.
Oh yes, closing comments then, Mr. Taneja. Since you are claiming that there is no political interference in pricing of petroleum products in this country, investors of oil marketing companies, and they're a worried lot. They don't understand what is happening. I'm sure they'd be wondering, and so do we here in ET now, that will oil marketing companies, CMDs, continue to be this generous to their political masters as we look at polls in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, and of course the big one in 2019. Are we likely to see this political generosity continue by the chiefs of oil marketing companies? I'm sure you will have some insight on that. Or do you think that we will go back to the regime of daily pricing which your government has institutionalized?
No, I think dynamic pricing is the best way forward, and I think it will be a shame if we try to reverse it, or we bring in, as some people say, administered pricing. I think it will be a real shame. But as far as OMC is concerned, it's a big debate the world over. Companies which are standalone OMC companies, they're always kind of very vulnerable. That's why if you look at, for instance, Europe, many other parts of the world, they have decided to go for more integrated company, upstream, midstream, downstream, so that what happens if you are just only downstream, this vulnerability will always be there. It can be political, it can be market, it can be international forces, whatever. So when you are standalone OMC, this vulnerability would always be there, and you have to learn to live with it.
I have a final question for you, and this is a more existential question for the Congress party really. You really began the deregulation process of petrol in 2010, and I think the logical solution and the logical conclusion to this was to take diesel to deregulation as well, which was done in 2016. In principle, do you support deregulation or not?
See, in principle we support, there is no doubt as such. That's what I am trying to say. I am coming with three solutions: immediate, medium term and long term. Immediate, slash down the petrol and diesel excise duty by 2 rupee and 3 rupee. Why 3 rupee in diesel? Because the automobile companies are bleeding, because the difference between diesel and petrol prices are coming down. Second point, in the medium term, make the agenda, take this to the GST council, include this product into the GST, because what is happening, oil minister is saying finance ministry will take a call, finance ministry is saying oil ministry is going to take call. Don't pass the ball like this. And the third agenda, which again and again I am saying, that we can take the lead in international platform, because there is a big question mark on the oil forwards, because they are just like casinos. I am saying they are zero-sum game for the people who are playing there.
Okay.
And
Gaurav,
this is having an impact to the economies like ours.
The talk in Karnataka and in Punjab.
Okay. Gaurav Vallabh, Narendra Taneja and Asi Tripathi, thank you very, very much for being with us. I don't think this discussion
We are talking
can be
about
over and
petrol.
done with, because there are governments that need to... One second. Because these are governments that need to take a call. Sir, I'm doing a conclusion wrap. I expect you to keep quiet right now. Because this is a very important topic. It impacts each one of us. It impacts the consumers. It impacts taxpayers. It impacts every Indian. The reality is that consumers will pay for nation building, but only if they also get the benefits at the right time. We did not get the entire benefit of a fuel price fall when prices fell below 30 degrees, which is why the outrage. Why are we now being taxed further? But the contrary argument to that is that if oil prices are going to rise to $100 a barrel mark, what can the government do? It will perhaps be a helpless situation, and consumers will perhaps have to brace up for a tighter crude regime.
The one positive thing is to see that there is political consensus on deregulation per se. That is important. Hopefully, the government will do whatever it takes to soften the blow for the consumers. Thanks for being with us on this edition of the India Development Debate. News and updates continue right here on ET Now.